Throughout this metabolic health project, we've been alluding a lot to other metabolic therapies such as sleep and exercise. And so I'm really excited to finally get to dive a little bit deeper into sleep as a metabolic therapy. Incorporating these metabolic therapies into my life has really boiled down to making some really big lifestyle changes. And I think a lot of people would actually feel that sleep is probably an easier lifestyle change to make than switching your diet to medical keto. But it's actually something that I have found probably the hardest, and that I've struggled with implementing a good, solid sleep routine over the last several months and beyond. But in this video, I'm going to get into why it's so important for our metabolic health, how to get better sleep, and the changes that I'm going to commit to making over the next several months and hopefully beyond as well to ensure I get better sleep to improve my metabolic health. We've talked many times throughout this project about the importance of mitochondria in metabolic health, and we know that sleep impairs the functioning of mitochondria. But I just want to quickly share what Dr. Christopher Palmer had to say about why sleep is an important component of metabolic therapy.
So what exactly is happening to mitochondria in your brain and metabolic health when you improve things like sleep?
So we know that sleep plays a really powerful role in both metabolic and mental health. And we also have pretty good basic science research that it impairs mitochondrial function when we don't get enough sleep. So when we sleep at night, one of the functions of sleep is actually kind of rest and repair, and that repair function is really important. So our brain is actually getting rid of waste products and toxins and even abnormal proteins like amyloid. Amyloid is often being produced, but it's usually getting disposed of and recycled. And when people don't sleep, some of those waste products and toxins can start to build up. That can put cells into a state of metabolic disrepair or dysfunction. And then that can then lead to things that we might call metabolic or mental disorders.
So along the lines of what Dr. Palmer shared about sleep being a time where waste products are able to be cleared from your brain, it makes sense that if you're not getting adequate sleep on a regular basis, that waste could build up in your brain, leading to a state of poor metabolic health or mental illness or just poor mental health. So perhaps the most important part of this video, how do we go about getting better sleep? There are many ways to improve your sleep, but there are a few generally accepted practices to hopefully make an impactful improvement on your sleep. So the first tip to hopefully help improve your sleep is getting natural light early in the morning. Now, something that I tried with this because I live in Canada where you don't really get natural light early in the morning for a good chunk of the year is trying the artificial blue light lamps, or SAD lamps as they're sometimes referred to as. Exposure to this light in the morning helps to kind of reset your circadian rhythm, which can help with overall sleep. Now, my experience trying this or trying to include this in my routine was a little bit different and is something that I will get into more in depth later in the video. The second tip for better sleep is having a consistent sleep schedule. So this means going to bed at roughly the same time every night and waking up at roughly the same time every morning. This helps your body to kind of know when it's time to sleep, allowing for better sleep functioning. The next tip is to have a bit of a wind down period before you actually go to sleep. So this includes avoiding bright lights, not doing, physically engaging activities, trying to do things like reading or just relaxing activities that help your body know that it's time to wind down in preparation for sleep. The next tip is to try to optimize your sleep environment as much as possible. So this includes things like making sure the room you're sleeping in is dark, is on the cooler side temperature-wise, and is as quiet as possible. This could also include things like having a good mattress and pillow. The next tip is to avoid alcohol, food, or drink in the hours before bedtime. I think we all know that alcohol can really disrupt your sleep in a negative way, but this is also true of food and drink. If you consume food in the hours before going to sleep, the digestive process can really affect your ability to get good sleep. And likewise, if you drink fluids in the hours before bed, it can make you need to go to the washroom, which can also affect your sleep. Along the same lines of being mindful of what we're consuming and when, it's also important to not consume any caffeine products for 8 hours is the typical recommendation before going to sleep. But this could be different for different people. If you're particularly sensitive to caffeine, you may want to have an even larger window between consuming the caffeine and your bedtime. Knowing the effects that caffeine has on our body, it makes sense that it would have an effect on our ability to get good sleep as well. The next tip is making sure you get some amount of exercise during the day. There are many different biological processes at play that make getting exercise beneficial to improving the quality of your sleep and your ability to fall asleep. Another benefit of exercising during the day is that it decreases your sleepiness during the day, which kind of leads us to our next tip, which is to avoid napping during the day. Now, there is some conflicting evidence on if a nap actually affects your nighttime sleep quality. But for me personally, if I have a long nap during the day, I know that it affects my bedtime later on. I don't feel like I need to go to bed as early, which can obviously affect my sleep quality too. A general tip for napping, though, if you really feel like you need the extra rest during the day, is to keep naps under a half an hour, 30 minutes. This is to prevent your body from entering deep sleep, which will leave you feeling groggy afterward. And keeping it shorter like this will probably help avoid impacting your sleep at night as well. And the final tip is something that I personally have found really, really helpful, and that is around sleep tracking, or tracking your sleep through various devices or apps. There are so many different wearable devices out there that can track your sleep and give you more information about what's going on during your sleep cycle. My running watch, which is a Garmin, tracks my sleep, but something that I've been leaning more into using is my Whoop band. It's been really good at giving me pretty accurate data about my sleep cycles, and it also has a journal function where I can log different factors that contributed to my day that then it tracks, trends in, and it gives me information on what sort of things affect my sleep quality, which has been really, really helpful. But just being able to take a look back the next day at how my sleep was, what the quality was, and then, think back to, okay, what factors contributed to it not being as good, or what factors contributed to it being really good quality, has been really beneficial in terms of creating a sleep routine that is tailored to myself and my needs and what works best for me. I think before I looked into this sleep data, I just kind of woke up the next day either feeling like I didn't get a good rest or feeling like I did get a good rest. And that was about the extent of how I thought about it. But getting access to this data has made me a lot more aware of my sleep quality and what factors can contribute to having better sleep quality. So we've been doing this metabolic health project for about 4 months now, and I really have been trying to bring this sense of awareness to my sleep and what affects it and what's kind of been going on throughout this 4 months. And so some things that I've noticed are at the beginning, when I first started the transition of my diet to medical keto, I definitely had some difficulties around sleep, and I definitely experienced a degree of insomnia. I got a little bit concerned about this, thinking that I was slipping into mania or something with this lack of need of sleeping and just feeling kind of buzzing when it was bedtime. But I checked in with my keto coach, Nicole, about this, and she said that it's pretty normal for this to happen in the first couple of weeks of transitioning to the medical keto diet. So during this period, it's important to be quite vigilant about being on top of trying to maintain a regular sleep schedule. And some people may even need some sort of sleep assistance throughout this period. And so it's important to talk about this with your doctor. My sleep did eventually regulate though, and I got back to a really good space. Something that I have noticed, though, about changing sleep needs after starting medical keto is that I don't really need as much sleep as I did before. It's nowhere near like struggling with insomnia or what I was describing about the first couple of weeks, but I have noticed that I don't need quite as much sleep to feel good the next day. And so that's kind of something that's been interesting throughout this process, where my own personal sleep needs have kind of shifted and changed. I have not been terribly rigorous thus far of implementing the sleep strategies that I just talked about and shared with you all, but I have been trying to incorporate it more and more throughout the last 4 months. And that has kind of led me to be able to be more aware of the less frequent times where I don't get as good of a sleep. For example, something that's happened a couple times in the past 4 months is that Rob and I will have had a really late soccer game, as late as 10 o'clock. Game ends at 11 o'clock, get home close to midnight. And, this obviously pushed my bedtime back quite substantially, thus affecting the quality of sleep that I was able to get. And we also got home that night, or typically from soccer, and we're feeling a little bit hungry. And so we had some snacks and we drank a lot of water, which again are not recommended things if you want to have good quality sleep. There's also the component of we worked really hard at soccer, and it was really vigorous physical activity, which probably also impacted our ability to fall asleep and enter deep sleep as quickly, which decreased our sleep quality as well. And obviously, based on these factors, I woke up the next morning not feeling very great. And so it's been really interesting just kind of bringing my awareness more to factors like that. Whereas before I might have done all that, woke up the next morning and been like, I don't know why I feel so bad. So it's been helpful bringing my attention to factors like that can really impact quality of sleep and thus how you feel the next day or for days to come. Now, living with an illness like schizophrenia presents its own challenges around sleep and factors like insomnia, but I have a whole video where I go over my own experience around, challenges I faced around sleep, which you can watch here. So before this metabolic health project, I will be the first to admit I did not have a good sleep routine. I stayed up way too late most of the time. And I had a baby 3 years ago. So for a couple of years, it was kind of irregular sleeping because of the needs of taking care of a baby. But some things that we've been really trying to focus on or do more of in the last 4 months have been, like I said, tracking my sleep and being able to get more insights into what factors lead to better sleep and what I can do better in that regard. We've been really trying to go to bed earlier. I'm still not terribly consistent with this, and I'm not doing a good job of having a consistent bedtime every night. So that is something that I'm going to focus more on going forward, but it is something that we've been working on more over the last 4 months. I've been trying to incorporate more of a wind down time where there's less exposure to bright lights. Rob got these dimmers in the bathroom. So when I'm getting ready for bed, doing my nighttime skin routine or whatever, I'm not exposed to bright lights. Trying to do reading before bed instead of scrolling through your phone or looking at a screen or whatever else it may be, and trying to really take that time to let my body know that it's time to start winding down to enter sleep. I mentioned the importance of getting natural sunlight in the mornings to kind of improve your circadian rhythm, but we live in Canada where months of the year during the winter, we don't really have early exposure to natural sunlight. It's still dark. And so what we got were these blue light glasses, which shine the blue light, directly into your eyes, which is supposed to emulate sunlight. But I actually noticed that as I was using these, I was kind of entering a bit more mania-like state. And I was having more difficulties with sleep and feeling more of that insomnia and kind of buzzing energy at bedtime. And so I spoke with Nicole, my keto coach, about this, and she said, yeah, that's actually something that people with bipolar spectrum illnesses have to be quite mindful of and probably actually generally steer clear of, because it does kind of trigger that mania component of the illness. She did say, however, though, that getting natural sunlight exposure is okay and is generally safe. So if you have a bipolar spectrum illness, maybe steer away from the blue light or SAD lamps or whatever they're called and, stick to getting natural sunlight if possible. Rob still uses the blue light sunglasses because he doesn't have a bipolar spectrum illness, and I think he finds it helpful in terms of resetting his circadian rhythm in the morning. We have also been trying to make improvements to our sleep environment. So we have blackout shades so that it's as dark as possible in our room when we're sleeping. We've been trying to sleep with the window a little bit open to make it a little bit cooler, but that's getting a little bit more complicated now as we enter summer and it's lighter earlier. We purchased a new bed. I think we realized that our old bed was getting quite old and was kind of uncomfortable and was impacting the quality of sleep we were able to get. We also purchased a lighter duvet in the effort to be colder when we're sleeping. So some things that we're going to try to be a lot more structured around or more focused on improving are particularly around consistency of sleep routine and having more of a structured regimen, I guess, when it comes to our sleep. So establishing a set bedtime, maybe with a buffer of a half hour to maybe an hour, and trying to get to sleep at that same time every night. And then again, waking up the same time every morning. This is a little bit easier. We have kids who get up that we have to get up with. And so it's generally the same time that we've been waking up, but focusing on that bedtime consistency. Another thing we're going to be focused on improving is our snacking. I think we snack way too much before going to bed, and so we're really going to focus our attention on eliminating snacks and fluid intake in those hours before going to bed. And this also pertains to caffeine intake. I'm definitely guilty of having a coffee or an iced coffee kind of midday, and I'm going to try to be more mindful of maybe limiting my caffeine to 1 or none per day early in the morning, and that's it. I mentioned that we've been working on establishing kind of a wind down routine where I try to focus on doing things like reading or activities that are more relaxing. But something that I am totally guilty of is scrolling at night on my phone and still being on devices like that. And so that is something that we are really going to try to focus on improving is eliminating electronics use at night. I mean, really trying to cut down on electronic use and scrolling throughout the day, but particularly as it pertains to sleep quality, eliminating that in the period before bedtime. We've generally been able to get exercise during the day most days, and so that's something we're going to continue to focus on, is making sure we're getting good physical activity during the day in an effort to improve our sleep as well. And now that it's kind of the summer months again and there is sunlight in the morning, I'm going to try harder to get outside as soon as I wake up to get some of that natural sunlight exposure, since I can't use the blue light glasses anymore. And that's something I'm going to work on as well in the next few months. So that is kind of an overview on tips for better quality of sleep, things that I've been becoming more aware of in terms of improving my sleep quality over the last several months, as well as areas that we're going to be really working on over the next several months and beyond, hopefully as well. And we will report back to you on how this all goes, and we will keep you updated throughout the process. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful in terms of garnering more tips for improving your sleep. We will also link to a few articles and resources in the description below with more information about improving sleep. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.